Order, order.
The draft Terrorism Act 2000 alterations to the Search Powers Code for Northern Ireland Order 2024.
Minister, would you be good enough to move the motion?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Mr Stringer, and I'm grateful to the committee for being here to consider this instrument. I beg to move that the draft Terrorism Act 2000, alteration of the Search Powers Code for Northern Ireland, Order 2024, which was laid on the 15th of October 2024, be approved. The UK and Northern Ireland in particular knows all too well the human cost of terrorism. This week sees the 50th anniversary of the Birmingham pub bombings. The vast majority of people in Northern Ireland want it to continue to be a safe and wonderful place in which to live and work. However, despite the work of the PSNI and other security services, we know that there are a small minority who continue to want to cause harm. It's important that the PSNI have the tools they need to allow them to continue to keep people safe. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our former and current police officers and members of the security services who work so hard and with such courage to keep us safe. Following the terrorist attack at Fishmongers Hall in November 2019, the then Home Secretary commissioned the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, Jonathan Hall KC, to review the multi-agency public protection arrangements, commonly referred to as MAPA, used to supervise terrorist and terrorist risk offenders on licence in the community. In response to recommendations made by Jonathan Hall KC following this review of MAPA, the Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Act 2022, hereafter referred to as the 2022 Act, established three new powers for counter-terrorism policing: a personal search power, a premises search power, and a power of urgent arrest. These powers were established in 2022. This order relates to the new power of personal search, the creation of which was also recommended by the Fishmongers Hall Inquest's Prevention of Future Deaths report. The personal search power has been inserted into the Terrorism Act 2000 in Section 43C by the 2022 Act and applies UK-wide. The new search power came into force on the 28th of June 2022. This order puts into practice the revised Code of Practice Northern Ireland for the authorisation and exercise of stop and search powers relating to Section 43, 43A, 43C and 47A of and Schedule 6B2, the Terrorism Act 2000, hereafter referred to as the Code. A copy of the draft revised Code of Practice was laid before Parliament on the 15th of October 2024. The purpose of the Code is to provide guidance to officers authorising and conducting stop and search under Section 43, 43A, 43C and Section 47A of and Schedule 6B2, the Terrorism Act 2000, and protection to those persons being searched. I would like to start by assuring honourable members that the revisions to the Code will not change the manner in which searches are conducted in any way. The amendments should be non-contentious and relate mainly to technical matters. They are intended to provide guidance to the Police Service of Northern Ireland regarding the search powers contained within the Terrorism Act 2000. The equivalent Code of Practice for police in England and Wales and Scotland was updated in 2022. The changes to this Northern Ireland Code will align but not mirror exactly the Code of Practice for England, Wales and Scotland due to jurisdictional differences. This revised code, as moved today, builds on work started by previous ministers in the Northern Ireland office. I will outline the main revisions for you now. The primary update to the code is the incorporation of the new stop and search power provided for by Section 43C of the Terrorism Act 2000. The code, as amended, provides guidance to the Police Service of Northern Ireland and officers from England, Wales and Scotland, police officers, when operating in Northern Ireland, surrounding the use not only of Sections 43, 43A and 47A and Schedule 6B to the Terrorism Act 2000, as outlined in the original Code of Practice, but also 43C. 43C provides a power for a constable to search a terrorist offender who has been released on licence and not recalled, and whose licence includes a search condition. I wish to reassure honourable members that this power only applies to those who have been convicted and where it's been deemed appropriate for an offender when released to have this licence condition included as part of the conditions of their release. Even when the power is included as a licence condition, in order for it to be used, the constable must be satisfied that it is necessary to do so for purposes connected with protecting members of the public from a risk of terrorism. Furthermore, the constable may conduct the search in any place where they have access to legally, whether or not it is a place to which the public has access. In revising the code to include the Section 43C power, we have set out for police officers the basic principles for its use and clarity on its scope. This includes providing guidance on when the power can be used and the powers of seizure associated with the search power. The revised code also clearly sets out the limitations on clothing that a person can be required to move when the Section 43C power is being exercised by officers. In keeping with existing stop and search powers, police officers exercising the Section 43C power may not commit a person to remove any clothing in public except for an outer coat, jacket or gloves, and an intimate search may not be authorised or carried out under the new power. Also added to the NI code is an explanation of when the search condition can be added to a licence, specifically to help manage the risk posed by terrorist offenders on licence who are assessed to be a high or very high risk to the public. Finally, the code as amended contains some language and format differences to the code for Great Britain. However, the purpose and key content of the code remains the same. These differences reflect the devolution of policing and justice functions in Northern Ireland and consequent differences in approach adopted in different jurisdictions. For example, I would draw the Honourable Member's attention to the fact that the Code for Great Britain contains an explanation on the basis upon which an offender is to be released on licence, whereas the revised Code in Northern Ireland outlines the roles of both the Parole Commission and the Department of Justice in this process. The Government ran a 12-week public consultation on the proposed amendments to the Code of Practice, which closed in January 2024. 7 responses were received, 6 of which were in favour of the revisions, with 1 response commenting that as a matter of policy it would not be appropriate for them to comment. Of the 6 who responded in favour, 5 suggested other slight amendments to the Code. These were duly considered, with a number being accepted. The full details of these suggestions were published in the consultation response document on the NIO web pages in March 2024. I hope that Honourable Members will agree that while these revisions are technical, they are very important. They align the Code of Practice used in Northern Ireland with the code used in the rest of the UK, ensuring that this offender management tool is available across the UK. They give guidance to the PSNI in their use of the powers of stop and search as contained within the Terrorism Act. This government is committed to keeping people safe. The fact that the Northern Ireland related terrorism in Northern Ireland threat level remains substantial following its reduction in March 2024 is testament to the tremendous efforts of the PSNI and security partners. We must ensure that they have the right and appropriate tools in order to continue to do this. And I know Honourable Members will join me in welcoming the increased additional security funding which will be provided to the PSNI in the next financial year. This £37.8 million of funding, provided in recognition of the unique security situation in Northern Ireland, ensures that the PSNI is equipped to tackle the threat posed by Northern Ireland-related terrorism in Northern Ireland. This revised code promotes the fundamental principles to be observed by the police and helps preserve the effectiveness of and public confidence in the use of police powers to stop and search under the Terrorism Act 2000. And I very much hope that Honourable Members will support these alterations to the Code of Practice.
The question is that the committee has considered the Draft Terrorism Act 2000, alterations to the search powers, Code for Northern Ireland, Order 2024. Alex Bogart for the opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. The committee today will be disappointed to hear that I do not intend to detain them long. We support this order. As my noble friend Lord Kane said in Grand Committee in the other place, this is essentially Conservative legacy legislation. We drafted it and we conducted the consultation earlier in the year, and we're very pleased to see that the government has continued with it. I will raise a couple of small points, if I may, and then resume my place. The first is technical. The Honourable Lady referred to how an intimate search may not be authorised or carried out under the new power. I wonder if she could just give us a little more detail around why that decision was made. The second is looking to the future. We all hope to see this implemented. What provision the government is making for a review of the new code to make sure that it's working effectively and getting the results that we all want. And third, she referred to the fact that the government had, in the budget, made additional money available for Northern Ireland and additional money for the additional security funding. There is, as she will know, quite a long-standing problem with police numbers in Northern Ireland. I think the level of the PSNI at the moment is 6,300, and the level agreed in New Decade, New Approach was 7,500. And I wonder if she could tell the committee what she is doing in conjunction with the Secretary of State and the Executive to make sure that PSNI can get up to that required figure, because obviously it has implications for national security. That said, I'd like to join her in thanking PSNI for the work that they do for the people of Northern Ireland and indeed for all of us in the United Kingdom, and congratulate them too on how their work contributed to that threat level being reduced from severe to substantial. And I'm pleased to say that my party will be supporting the order today.
Minister, if you could respond.
Thank you very much, and I thank the honourable gentleman for raising those important issues about how this code of practice will be put into operation, but also the wider issues of policing context in Northern Ireland. And I thank the other honourable members for their support in this debate. In terms of intimate search, it's really important to maintain the confidence of the police and for the public to know that there are regulations within the powers. So it's an operational matter. How that's conducted will be up to police officers, but for them to know that there is a limit, and that's very, very clearly set out in terms of what clothing can be taken off, but also what places that can be carried out in as well. And I can write to the honourable gentleman further with more detail on those issues. The code will continue to be reviewed as all operational matters are, and this will now be an operational matter for the Chief Constable in Northern Ireland to continue. But we will continue to take a keen interest as ministers in the ages of people that this power is used with, the ethnicity of those people as well, and I've been asking questions about all of those issues, and we will continue to do so, because it's really important that these powers are used within the confines. They need to be used, and that they are well used, but also that the public, as I've said, have confidence in these powers and how they're used. And finally, on policing, the government absolutely recognises the difficult financial position that the PSNI faces, and in terms of police numbers as well. Policing is largely a devolved matter, as the honourable member will know, and this is an operational matter for the Chief Constable to look at additional police numbers. However, last week's budget delivered a record £18.2 billion for the Northern Ireland Executive in 2025 to 26. This is the largest settlement in real terms in the history of devolution. Recognising the unique security situation in Northern Ireland, the government makes these additional security funding payments as well, but it is up to the Chief Constable how he will use them in terms of additional police numbers. Paramilitary Groups in Northern Ireland report was also published in 2015 and provides an additional area of concern. This was intended to inform ongoing cross-party talks, and remains an area that we are closely watching as well in terms of what additional funding is needed there. To conclude, this ISI is largely technical, but it is important to policing in Northern Ireland and to help police continue to keep people safe and have the confidence of everyone across all communities in Northern Ireland. This government is committed to ensuring that the people of Northern Ireland, as in the rest of the UK, are safe. I therefore commend this order to the House, and I beg to move.
The question is that the committee has considered the Draft Terrorism Act 2000, Alterations to the Search Powers Code for Northern Ireland, Order 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order.